politicians and lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host. Today, we're broadcasting live from the belly of the beast, Minneapolis and St. Paul, the Twin Cities, the liberal zombie apocalypse. Joining me as always is MAGA Jesse. How you doing there, buddy?
I'm doing good. And yeah, we got a lot to get into. Is Tim Walz a sexist? We're going to find out today. 100%. And is he anti-gay, anti-LGBTQ? We're going to find out. And so we'll go over Mary Moriarty and the press conference she did, going over the Ryan Londrigan charges that were dropped. We're going to be going into the Feeding Our Future trial, talking about Nicole Mitchell, some updates there. Chris Corey filed to run against Tom Emmer. And we'll get into a couple of other little stories on top of that. So
little stories. Dave Smith owning Chris Cuomo. That's a little story. I like that
a little bit.
That's a good story. If you haven't watched that debate, you got to go watch that debate.
And Tucker is saying that your microphone is not on, so Dawson might want to screw around with that.
Oh,
I'm catching it too. Jesse, keep talking.
Okay, I'll just keep going then. We're going to go into Walz is a sexist, but let's see here, and especially with this Mary Moriarty thing, there's a lot to get into. I'm running out of things to say here. I'm trying to keep it going. Feeding Our Future, obviously that was a scam. We need to explain all of what went down with the Feeding Our Future trial because there's some new updates on the case that a juror was found to be given $120,000 to try to find these people not guilty. So that will be a.
You don't like being put on. You don't like being put on the spot there.
I wasn't ready for it, but we'll see if your mic is working. We'll go.
You're not like your hero Trump, where you could just kind of riff, can you? That's tough to do. I agree with you. Is my microphone working now?
Yep.
It was literally unplugged. Who knows why it was unplugged? It's the CIA. I'm telling you what. First they go for Alex Jones, Jesse. Then they go for me. That's exactly what's going on here. All right. Luckily, the microphone's working right when we get to our sponsors. We couldn't do the show with Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Warren Wessel of Warren Wessel Realty. If you're buying a home, you're selling a home in Minnesota, Wisconsin, not Texas. No going to Texas. You got that? It's got to be Minnesota, Wisconsin, where he's licensed. Just kidding. He'd help sell your home if you were going to move to Texas. Well, we want to keep you here, right? Just stay with us for a little bit longer. Please give Warren a call, 612-419-7453. And if you're buying a home, let the good guys at John Galt Mortgage Company give a shot. Give them a shot at financing it, okay? Go to johngaltmortgage.com. Join us in the comment section. If we don't have comment sections, we have no idea if my mic is off, apparently, okay? So thank you very much, Tucker. We will try to read your comments on Rumble. If you want to interrupt us any time, hit a Rumble rant or unplug my microphone.
Yep.
Joining me in studio, by the way, is my brother and his two oldest sons, which are just watching and observing. And, I'm like, hey, come to the studio. You're going to be really impressed with what we got. And here, the first minute, they realize, oh, wait, they don't even plug in microphones around this joint,
it gets better the more you talk about it.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, what, are we just going to ignore the fact that's happened?
That's exactly what
it is a hang. It is a hang, right? Running the dials as always, Mr. Deep State himself, Dawson. How you doing, Dawson?
I'm doing good, except someone's messing with my microphones, and I don't know who.
Yeah, but whose responsibility is the microphone?
It's mine, but
there you go.
I don't remember the last time I unplugged your microphone for anything.
I feel like he does that to me all the time, actually. Okay,
I wish.
Enough of the bullshit. Let's get right into the story. Is Walz a sexist? This is an accusation that was made to the Star Tribune by Mary...
Moriarty.
Moriarty. Why can't I say that name?
It's a tricky one.
Why? What is it? The R's that go together? It's like Mary Moriarty. Okay, I'm gonna screw it up on the show. She tells the Star Tribune Walz's criticism of her handling of Trooper case was driven by her gender and sexual orientation. So this is a quote, and this is in the Star Tribune article. Before Walz made those comments Monday, Moriarty criticized Walz for his past comments on how her office handled the case, given Walz oversees the Department of Public Safety and therefore the state troopers in Lundgren. Quote, I think it's because I'm a queer woman in this role, Moriarty told the Star Tribune. I think it's because he looks at the political winds and which way they're blowing, and I think that's what he reacts to, which is horrible. If we want people to trust the system, that's not the way to do it. Walz denied bias played into his comments. Well, that's false, he says. Next question, and this is according to a press conference that Walz had with addressing the comments by Moriarty. Is Tim Walz a sexist and anti-LGBT. Is he against queer women? Is that what do you think there, Jesse?
Yeah,
seems like that's his track record.
Crazy. I mean, when you look at everything that he's done, the child transgenders and everything, you'd figure that they'd be nothing but happy with him. But I think that she's using this as a political attack against Walz, and she is right that Walz is just going with the political wins on certain things. He just goes with whatever he thinks is going to make him the most popular, whatever he thinks is necessary for the time. But he's got a radical leftist in Hennepin County here with Mary Moriarty, who is absolutely insane. I mean, she's exactly what George Soros wants in a prosecutor, someone who is going to let the criminals off and always go after the cops. So I don't know if Tim Walz is a sexist, and if that's the reason. I think it's more because she's not going along with what the Democrat plan of attack is on this one. And the big problem is that she overcharged this case. So the state eventually had to interfere. So I think it's more a problem of Mary Moriarty's track record in office than it is about her gender or the fact that she's queer.
But it's so funny. You hear these Republicans say this all the time. Oh, we're always infighting. We're always attacking ourselves. It's a circular firing squad, and it's like in the left, it's all roses and blue skies. It's like no, the left is really divided right now, especially when it gets to Israel, Gaza. But like even when you get like this George Soros pushed prosecutor that wins Hennepin County, which is absolutely crazy.
Right. But it's not like the alternatives were much better in most cases. I mean, there's Ryan Winkler. I think he was the one who ended up getting second or third place. So Ryan Winkler, for people that don't remember, he's an establishment, former state representative. Go along to get along. I'm not sure how much better he would have been either. So Hennepin County is kind of screwed when it comes to
But
these
isn't it
offices.
funny that he probably is better?
It's
right?
crazy. He probably wouldn't have done this.
Right.
But
Yeah,
there
he's
would have
insane.
been different problems then.
There would have been
it's always
different
different problems.
Yeah, he's more from the side of the left that's like, let's help out our little buddies, because there are some people that are above the law. She's from the part of let's let off anyone that's in the victim group, right? And then prosecute like good people, right? All right, so Billy22 says maybe little Timmy could bake a pan of lemon bars for Mary. I like that one. That's good.
Yeah, but I think Tucker's onto something too. He says it's their classic play. When they're bad at their jobs, they blame everyone else. And, it's so obvious that she overcharged this thing. And she's even kind of admitting that now. We'll get into that a little bit. But I think it's so obvious how bad this prosecution is. She knows that they would be unsuccessful. That's why she's dropping the case. That's the real reason, because she knows she would be embarrassed if she actually took it to trial, because she even admits it wouldn't even make it to a jury.
Whoa. You actually think it has to do with that? I mean, you don't think
so.
It's the politics of this?
I mean, the politics of it is, of course, a factor, but I'm saying that the biggest reason is she doesn't want to be embarrassed and lose. And,
I think she doesn't want to get embarrassed and lose because Tim Walz takes a case from her. Because that's what the insiders say was going to happen, is Tim Walz was going to remove the case from her, give it to Attorney General Keith
disagree.
Ellison.
I think that her big thing is the social justice. She's trying to say, I need to push the racial justice thing here.
But she wins in the politics. She wins either side of it, right? Like, she at least tried to prosecute it, I mean, I guess some people could criticize her not doing a good enough job.
Right, and people would say it's because you overcharge and all those other things. But, I think she is she knows that the same community that she's trying to prop up right now would come after her because she was unsuccessful. And then they'd say, well, Mary Moriarty, all she did was fail us. So I think she's pushing this onto the state because she realizes that she's got no chance. She's going to be embarrassed. And, yeah, I think that, obviously Walz had his own reasons for trying to take it up, too.
The Democrat chair of Minnesota, Ken Martin, we talked about this guy. Definitely not to be confused with Ken Dahl. Well, okay, that was a terrible joke. This is absolutely ridiculous. I tell better jokes than that, guys. Trust me. Like, look at this audience. The audience is terrible. It was when your family's in the audience and they don't even laugh at your own jokes. It's like, yep, there you go. Thumbs down. Kid Mart says, this is absolutely ridiculous. You can say what you want about Governor Walz, but there's been no governor, DFL, or GOP in the state of Minnesota that has been a bigger ally and friend of the LGBTQIA plus community, period. In stop. Well, Walz has definitely been good for the LGs and the T's, but I haven't heard him say much about the BQs and the IAs and the pluses.
Well, the
right?
B forces him to say there's two genders.
Yes.
So that's not going to happen.
But who's ever standing up for the Bs? Why don't we do a press conference on the Bs? I don't think their voice gets heard too much. Now I'm trying to understand. I need to sense censor a little bit what I'm saying here because we do have a 14-year-old in the audience. Look at this. This is politics. We can't even talk about politics today. It's just all adult stuff. Okay. By the way, we did the show on Thursday, and Tushy was hanging around eating wings all afternoon.
Yeah.
And it was like 4 o'clock. The Trump verdict came in. So we're going to definitely get MAGA Jesse's comments on that. I'm sure you guys are going to want to stick around for it. But everyone and their brother's talking about the Trump conviction. What I think we should do is break down some of this Mary Moriarty press conference. She actually said that her staff was feeling threatened by pro-Lundgren protest or rallies or whatever you want to call it. And so she basically made the comparison to January 6th. Is that true?
Yep, that's right. We can listen to that one because obviously she's anti-free speech if she doesn't like the idea of people protesting. I mean, she's got no problem with Black Lives Matter burning down buildings. She's got no problem with them rioting. But, you know, if conservatives, if people stand up and say, hey, don't prosecute this cop like this, then that's just like January 6th. So it's ridiculous. And, yeah, Dawson, that's at the 3-minute, 15-second mark.
Let's go ahead and play this clip here. This is Moriarty.
That has repeatedly tried to center Mr. Lundgren as the victim. The defense team, paid for by the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association, encouraged over 100 supporters to be bussed in, handed out free support Lundgren t-shirts, and created a gauntlet downstairs that the Cobb family was forced to walk through to get to court. Some of them taunted Ricky Cobb's twin brother, Rashad. Members of our staff were frightened at the spectacle, which reminded them of January 6th.
That's good.
How is this?
That's good. I mean, this person's crazy. First of all, that's like legitimately just politics 101. You rally support. It's the prerogative of a group like that to rally the people who support their cause, a just cause in many regards, to show up peacefully. That's what they did. And she's equating. And by the way, that also kind of happened on January 6th. Of course, we know they're referring to the worst things that happened on January 6th that no one defends, by the way. Let's go ahead and
yeah, and I see Tucker had a $5 rumble in. He said, but it's all right when George Soros does it. Exactly. They're all fine with the protests when it's George Soros fund. They're all fine with it when it's the leftist cause. And we've also, it looks like Senator Bill Liskey, unless it's fake Bill Liskey. He says, hey guys, I'm on my lunch break. I wanted to wish you all a happy dairy month. Exactly. That's what June was always about. It was always dairy.
Triggered.
Up until now.
It's
which I came to the realization before the show is that apparently Mary Moriarty is accusing Tim Walz of being a sexist and anti-gay during Pride Month.
Yeah.
So maybe she did that on purpose, but I'm a part of the cause. I'm with you, Bill. I think that we need to make June Dairy Month again.
I think Bill Liskey should embrace what his primary opponent in 2022 thought and wish everyone a happy Pride Month. Can you do that? Wish, because honestly, we're not hearing that anywhere else. I need to hear it on our own thread. By the way, hi to the lovely T-Wall for joining us in the section. Razzle Dazzle, before I forget about this, we're still working on that story. Hopefully we'll get it to you on Thursday. You'll understand if we get the story why it's taken so long to get it here. All right, so Moriarty slams Walz. Let's go to this part. What happens here, Jesse?
Right, so Mary Moriarty is going after Tim Walz on this section. So it's interesting. It shows that there's this divisiveness going on, that these Democrats can't even get their own story straight, that she's trying to go even further left than him, and she's trying to insinuate that he's got a conflict of interest by involving the Minnesota Peace and Police Officer Association. So that is the 1935 section timestamp there on same video, Dawson.
The State Patrol is overseen by our governor. Our governor, who's been very active in inserting himself into this case. What I haven't seen asked a lot is, hey, Governor, don't you have a conflict here? The State Patrol provides your security detail. You oversee the State Patrol, which has some major issues with training, as I'll discuss a little bit later.
All right, I think that covers it right there. Because yeah, she's insinuating there's a conflict of interest there, and
Seems like a
maybe
valid
there's
point, by the way.
maybe there is a point to that. And actually, it's interesting listening to her press conference. I listened to the entirety of it, and there was a couple of moments where I thought, I kind of agree with that. If only you were being truthful. If only you were being honest. Because she says, one of the goals of my prosecutor's office is to say that when we have these charges, we need to continue to evaluate the evidence and then drop the charges when we think we don't have enough evidence. I think, well, actually, that's the proper role of a prosecutor's office. They should be reviewing evidence and not afraid to say when they make a mistake and drop charges when they think they went too far, when they thought they were out of line. So there were a couple of things in there where I thought, okay, maybe she's onto something with that. But the problem is I don't think she's doing it in an honest way because, like we talked about, the only reason she's dropping this case is because of the political pressure, and then also because she's going to lose.
I like how you amended that, because I was going to be like, we're not saying that. I think it's the politics. I think it's all the politics. And when we get into Nicole Mitchell, I think, once again, it's all the politics. You have to understand the left is all politics, right? So is a lot of the right. Let's just be honest. The uniparty is all politics. It's whatever to helps them survive. In this case, she didn't want it taken from her from Tim Walz, which kind of has a point. There's a little bit of conflict of interest. Let's just imagine. It's just I don't think I'm crazy here. State Patrol, what do you think? It's like 99.9% are like on Lundgren's side in this whole thing, right?
Probably.
Right? You don't think that seems a little hostile to Walz when he's got them as this protective detail? Seems it's a valid point. What do you think, Dawson? You're not like that big into the political side of these kind of issues. What do you think?
About what her view
He
is of it or what?
listening. No, of Tim Walz accusing him of being basically biased because State Patrol provides his own protective detail. Is that a fair point? What do you guys think of the comment sections too?
I don't.
BDC 1415 says she's irritating, which is true.
There's definitely that, and
Total
JL
fact.
Jazz says the case should have never been brought, and I agree with that. And the reason that Moriarty is saying that she decided to drop this, the reasoning that she's giving is because she's saying, upon review of new evidence, I mean, we've all seen the video for exactly what it was since the beginning, so she wants to claim new evidence. What really she's claiming is that Lundgren is going to argue in court that he had reasonable fear for his partner's safety because one of the fellow officers was leaning into the vehicle trying to unbuckle Ricky Cobb's seatbelt. So apparently she's saying that because of that new evidence suggests that we won't be able to have a case. So basically she's admitting that their defense is too strong for us to be able to defeat it. And, I think there is an argument for reasonable fear in that moment. I mean, could he have done things a little bit differently? Sure. And, maybe we'll get into that section too. It's the 22-minute, 15-second mark because Mary Moriarty, as far as I know, she's never been a police officer. She probably has no idea how to do the job, but she thinks that she has the authority and the responsibility to try to tell these cops how they should have done their job after the fact. I think she has no idea that your adrenaline's going in those types of moments. She has no idea that you can't analyze things after the fact like this and try to do everything perfect. Nobody's a perfect individual, and there's going to be problems along the way. And she's basically making it out as if that Ricky Cobb is this big victim and that the cops should have handled themselves in a much more professional way. So let's go ahead and play that video.
Hold on. I actually don't know much about her, so I just quickly did the bio search. Her mother, Linda, was an English teacher, and her father, Patrick, served as Itasca County attorney from 1963 to 1969.
Interesting.
And later a public defender in New Ulm. They moved around. Moriarty worked briefly as a reporter before enrolling at McAllister College, where she played softball and basketball. What? What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say here?
I don't know. I'm not saying
Shut
anything.
up, Jesse.
Yeah.
Be more mature about this. And majored in history and should we be like all sports media and talk about Caitlin Clark for a second?
Yeah, right.
Majored in history and political science, earning her bachelor in arts in 1986. In 1989, she earned her JD from the University of Minnesota Law School. After clerking for Hennepin County Judge Kevin Burke and passing the bar exam, Moriarty went to work for the Hennepin County Public Defender's Office. And it looks like she has been a public defender her whole life.
Yeah, but I knew she came from the defense background, and that kind of breeds some of these types of lawyers. So,
Yeah.
And Bill Liskey, we got Senator Bill Liskey says, If we were truly worrying about conflicts of interest, this would not be the place to start. I think investigating other far more significant areas with conflicts of interest would be the place for that energy. The governor is the head of the executive branch, and that is his job to oversee the state patrol, including deciding on any misconduct.
By the way, I saw the comments about where Bridget is. She will be back next week, okay? So trust me. We haven't scared her off yet there, Tucker. Don't worry. Maybe you did, but we brought her back. Okay, so let's go to this last clip here. This is her telling cops how to do their job.
Fired sometime later that day. So in all the time, when you watch this video, Ricky Cobb, a black man who is stopped by white patrol officers on the side of the road, has no idea why he's being detained. None. The troopers never gave him that answer. The troopers never said, Mr. Cobb, we are arresting you. Please get out of the car. They never gave him an opportunity to make that decision on his own. He could have fled, and then he would have been charged with a felony fleeing a police officer. But he was never given that chance. They knew who he was. They knew where he lived. Their policies would have indicated they could not have chased him. They could not have shot after him. Why didn't their policies say, hey, have a conversation before you approach the car about what you're going to do when you decide to arrest somebody? And by the way, tell them you're going to arrest them. Don't keep saying, hand me your keys, and have them questioning why. Why are you asking me after 20 minutes when my headlights were out to hand you the keys? They never gave him that opportunity. There's some who will say, hey, all you have to do is comply, and you won't have a problem. And I want to focus us back to Philando Castile, who complied.
Okay,
Yeah,
stop.
that's good.
That's disgusting.
Right. She's unbelievable,
Clearly
isn't
a major error on that one.
she? Yeah. No, it's crazy what she's saying there. You know, she's acting as if, that criminals are going to just have these very cordial, polite conversations with police officers once they're informed of every little detail of what's going on with their stop. You know, it's one of those things, he's got his headlights out, so, he shouldn't even be driving on the road like that when it's at night. And, so for her to be sitting here telling all these cops what to do, she's never been in that kind of position. She obviously doesn't have the mindset for it either, because she's the kind of cop that would get herself in a lot of trouble by acting like that. It's going to be people fleeing the scene, and she's saying, you're not supposed to chase after them. You're not supposed to shoot after them. It's like,
you're supposed
to
have a conversation, Jesse.
Yeah, you're supposed to just talk to them.
Was there a Facebook friend request yet? No, there wasn't. You should have a Facebook friend request before you even tell them that they're going to be arrested. By the way,
Right.
yeah, he had an arrest warrant out for him. I mean, probably he should know that kind of stuff, right? But okay, no big deal.
Right, and she goes on to say, that apparently they were talking with the Ramsey County to see if they still wanted to have Ricky Cobb arrested. So she says, he's sitting there. He doesn't know what's going on. You mean like what happens all the time when people get pulled over? Usually what goes on, a cop comes up to you.
Ricky Cobb didn't give his written consent to be arrested that day.
Yeah, exactly.
Was he told that he was under arrest?
She literally said that, right? She said
that he wasn't told that.
Well, she
said
she originally said, you're told that you're being arrested, but not for what? Mm-hmm. So it's like she kind of played both ways. I swear to God, that's what she said at the beginning of it.
And it's pretty clear when they're saying, give me your keys, step outside of the vehicle. What do you think is going to happen in that situation? You're probably getting arrested.
Yeah. I mean, he is the one that, I can't remember what it was. Was it a restraining order that he
I can't remember.
abused? I think it was something like that. So, and there was a warrant for his arrest. Okay, let's move on to this next story. Speaking of arrests here in Minnesota, this is just fascinating. Okay, so this is actually a real story. I just have to preface this. This is not Hollywood. We're not going to tell you a scene from the new Martin Scorsese movie. This is literally what has happened in the Feeding Our Future trial here in Minnesota. Now, if you don't remember, go ahead, pull the article up, the Feeding Our Future trial. This is like the craziest story. This is straight out of the Somali community. And they ripped off Minnesota taxpayers to the tune of, it seems like $250 million. 7 total people right now being tried. Just a crazy story. Let me pull this up on mine so I can read it, because I'm getting a little bit of Got something in the way. Taxpayers were ripped off to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars in pandemic-era fraud perpetrated from members of the Minnesota Somali community. By the way, this is at truthhurtsnews.com if you want to check it out. In total, 70 individuals are accused of stealing over $250 million by defrauding a program that was designed to feed hungry Minnesota children. You know, of all the fraud that you could commit to steal it from funds like geared towards feeding innocent little hungry children, like there's places these kind of people go. All right, allegedly go, right? Because no one has been actually convicted yet. Yesterday, news broke that a person delivered a bag of $120,000 in cash to one of the jurors' homes over the weekend. According to the Star Tribune, the juror said, quote, "A woman left the bag of cash with her father-in-law Sunday with the message that she'd get another bag of cash if she voted to acquit," end quote. This is not a movie. This actually happened over the weekend. That juror immediately called 911, and the FBI was assigned to the case. Yesterday, before the jury deliberated, the juror was released, and now she fears for her safety in case the person behind the payment wants to retaliate.
Right.
Now, jurors, this is the story here. Jurors are not identified. It's not like a trial happens, and we all understand who's on the jury. They're actually secretive. They're not known to the public. The only people that really know who is on the jury is the lawyers, the prosecution, defense, and the actual defendants, and the judge, of course, right? So who leaked who this juror was, okay? And then
You've got to think the prosecution. I'm sorry, the defense.
I was like, wait, go back to law school,
yeah,
Jesse.
You've got to think the defense. I was thinking
100%.
something else. But no, it's pretty crazy because in $120,000, that is insane to have that in cash to be given to someone. And, thank God that this juror was honest and admitted it. But, I mean, even if you take that money, think about all the problems associated with it. And if you ever get caught, where do you put it? It's and what do you do if you get caught with it? Then all of a sudden you're in trouble.
A felon,
right? And all you did was get jury duty, and then some screwball came to your house and tried to give you $120,000.
Maybe what you do is you just say duress. Well, hold on one second. Yeah, there's no good option here. There's no good option. I was gonna say you take the money, you give it to a charity, right?
Yeah.
But then you still should vote the way of your conscience. So if you don't vote to quit, you would fear retaliation, right? Plus a mistrial because the juror was paid off.
Well, and of course, you got the IRS looking at you. If you suddenly donate $120,000 to a random charity, they'd say, "Where did that money come from?" So
hey, you leave it at the doorstep.
Right, exactly. So it's
just let's make sure that charity's not feeding our future.
Yeah.
No, so. And obviously, by the way, that's your money, right? Let's just be honest. That's $120,000 cash that was taken from you, the taxpayer. So she's damned if she does, damned if she doesn't. Obviously, the right play here is to call the authorities. It doesn't get easy after that, right? So now she's dismissed from the case. I'd love to know just what kind of protection she's getting right now, because I hope to God there's some protection.
Right.
You got to imagine she is really fearful of retaliation.
Yeah.
And why was she picked out to do, why did this happen? And we just learned from the Star Tribune.
Well, and they say that no other juror was contacted in this time unless the jurors just aren't being honest.
we just found this out from Star Tribune. A second juror feeding her
second,
future trial excused after hearing about attempted bribe.
Right, I mean since. But it just makes me think, why wouldn't they go after multiple jurors?
Yeah. I mean, they only need one, right?
Right.
But, yeah, what a crazy story. Or maybe they knew all the jurors and they found the person that's maybe cash-strapped or something like that or in debt. You know, this is why you can't get a security clearance with the government if you have huge financial issues, because you're more likely to be bought off and bribed. What a crazy story. And it's not a movie. It's like literally happened. So, by the way, just think about this. Well, hold on. So I don't know if the jurors might not be privy to this information. Just think what that does for like the look of guilt that somebody came in and tried giving you cash.
Yep.
And yeah, you can go.
Well, and all those Democrats love to prop up Feeding Our Future up until this point. So, they were all saying that this was such a great organization up until now.
I don't know. I think all those campaign donations went to Republicans, right?
Yeah, right.
By the way, if you're sick and tired of this crap in Minneapolis and want to move out of the suburbs, give Warren Wessel a call. He'll find you a good home. Outside of the madness of Minneapolis and St. Paul, he'll find you a great home. You can give my good friend Warren a call at 612-419-5600. 7453. Great sponsor of the show. Believes the same things that you and I believe, and that's why we have him as a sponsor. All right. This is another interesting story, and this one came out over the weekend. It started out, and we talked about this on the show last Thursday. Ken Martin, the chair of the Democrat Party, called for Senator Nicole Mitchell to resign. Kyle, you don't know about this senator in Minnesota, do you? My brother's from Dallas, Texas, by the way. Okay, this is so good. So April 22nd, our legislative session only lasts till, for those people that don't know the story, or if you do know it already, just let me explain the great quality of senators we have, as Bill Liskey's a senator is listening to this, the great quality of senators we have in Minnesota. We have this senator in Minnesota from Woodbury, which you know where that's at, who ends up on April 22nd, the day that the legislature's not meeting, being arrested at 5 a.m. in Detroit Lakes. You know where Detroit Lakes is, right?
Yeah.
3 hours northwest. She's found for burglarizing a woman. Now, turns out the woman is her stepmother. Her father is deceased, and says that her mother had Alzheimer's, a recent diagnosis of Alzheimer's, and so she was doing a welfare check, which is very normal to leave Woodbury at 1 a.m. to do a welfare check, sneak in, found with black clothing on, black sock over the flashlight, with a bag of goodies, including a laptop, which wasn't hers. And then when cops were called, she went and hid in the basement, by the way. And she broke into the basement, by the way. But she was doing a welfare check on an Alzheimer's patient. Let's read between the lines here. She was actually victimizing an elderly woman with Alzheimer's. Okay, you would think she's goner. Nope. The Democrats, who always play politics, want to make sure she stayed in office. It's due process, guys. Trump's guilty, but she needs her day in court. Due process. So they ended the legislative session, which they have a full majority, with her voting on every piece of legislation, especially stuff that makes people criminals. She even was a author of a bill that said you couldn't have a self-defense firearm in your home, which is really interesting, right? All right. So the burglary, the senator who's right now being charged with first-degree burglary, we already had, after the legislative session's over, all the damage is done. The Democrats' chair wants her to resign. Now Tim Walz joins in the call for Nicole Mitchell to resign.
Well, that's because he's sexist. That's because he doesn't
I
think
didn't
a
think of
woman
that.
should be able to hold that power. And we got Senator Bill Liskey says, don't lump me in with her. I and a few others immediately filed an ethics complaint, which is sadly all we can do. And you're right. I mean, with Senator Bobby Joe Champion leading this thing, he is as corrupt as it gets, and he's playing cover-up for this entire thing. But luckily, and at least for our entertainment purpose, these Democrats are divided on these issues. So we see Ken Martin and Tim Walz on this, and then we see some other Democrats saying, keep her in there. So yeah, that is interesting.
But there's a reason for this, and this is what you're going to get from Truth Hurts and not other media. Why do you have Tim Walz? Why do you have the DFL chair calling for her to resign? There's actually a reason for this, and it's all politics, right? So first of all, don't resign during the legislative session. What she was accused of in her comments are terrible. Like, she should have resigned. The ethics committee should have actually pursued this. They didn't, right? All politics. So after the legislative session's over, they're calling for a resignation. But why? Well, we dug into it. Dawson, pull up, let's go F13. This is actually special elections, the statute. And it says in subdivision 1, so it's statute 204D.19, special elections when held. Subdivision 1, vacancy filled at general election. When a vacancy occurs more than 150 days before the next state general election, and the legislature will not be in session before the final canvass of the general elections returns, the vacancy shall be filled at the next state general election. Why are they calling for her to resign? It's very simple. Because 150 days before November 5th is June 8th. We're 4 days away from when this thing triggers. If she resigns on June 9th, and by the way, her trial, is it June 11th is her trial? 10th.
Yep.
I'm getting confused with July 11th, which is Trump's.
And then the 12th is the
Ethics Committee.
the ethics
Allegedly.
committee.
Yes,
Yep.
allegedly.
which is also when they should put out that executive audio that they claim they were going to have available for the public that isn't available for the public.
That's right, which is what we've actually exposed them for. Okay, so if she waits till June 9th to resign, what then happens is there has to be a special election that's not on the general election. Well, that's a problem for the Democrats. See, they want every Democrat voter that goes out there and votes in November, which they're already going to show up, and they're going to show up for multiple reasons, because a woman's right to choose is on the ballot, right? That's what they'll say. Go support Joe Biden. Go support Kelly Morrison. What they want is all those voters then to also weigh in on the Senate seat. If they wait after June 8th, it's going to be some special election, probably in December, where it's going to be tons of resources and time to get people to show up to vote in a Democrat, and then it leaves them vulnerable for that seat to go Republican, because it's really a toss-up district. Woodbury is kind of a toss-up. It leans Democrat, but it's a toss-up. Republicans could win it. They still could win in November, by the way. But I'm just saying they like their odds better in just the November election than, if it was a December special election. Now, this is why I came across this. I saw a story this weekend that Kelly Morrison, another state senator, you got to remember, and Kyle, you don't even know this, Minnesota, our legislature, the House is run by Democrats. We have a Democrat governor, and the Senate is one seat in favor of Democrats. So if she resigned, the senator, it would have blown up the whole end of the session. It would have, there's the Jim Ablers of the world, but likely would have been gridlocked, okay? So Kelly Morrison, who is the endorsed Democrat for the open seat Dean Phillips leaving in CD3, she's likely to become the next congresswoman. And all of a sudden there's a story this weekend that says Kelly Morrison is looking at resigning, like this week. And I'm like, resigning this week? Why would she resign this week? She might lose the November election. She would still be a senator. The reason she's resigning is because then it ends up on the November ballot. Well, it's the same thing for Nicole Mitchell. So really, actually, there's a chance at the end of this week, the Democrats not only have not a majority more, they actually might be the minority. Now, it's a moot point because until they actually meet again, which will be January next year, that'll never be a real majority because they're not voting. But they might actually technically have less Democrat senators than Republican senators.
Right, and that's why, this is proof in case that, let's say they both resign. Mitchell's gone, Morrison's gone. That means Republicans have the majority in the state Senate, 33 to 32. That is proof that, we need the ability for the legislature to be able to call special sessions. Right now, currently in Minnesota, it's only up to the governor. If we had the legislature who was able to, be able to make those decisions too, that would mean that Republicans would have the majority. Obviously, you'd have to reach a certain threshold before a special session could be agreed to, but in theory, they'd be able to go back and change the legislation that the Democrats just passed. So I wish that the legislature was given more power and have that taken away from the executive branch and the governor.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with you on that one.
It's debatable. I mean,
Yeah,
I
it's very
see
debatable.
it work in other states better, and it just depends. I mean, obviously the dynamics of our state, and it would be interesting. It would cause
But don't you
new
want
things.
less people being able to call government back into session?
I think it's a tougher standard than it's a tougher standard to have the legislature agree to it than one guy, Tim Walz. Tim Walz, if he can do it on his own,
Yeah, but
that's
see,
less,
it kind of works itself out, Jesse, because he's not going to call a session unless there's some kind of agreement. Because literally, they could come back to St. Paul and they could just make a motion for sine die, and they're done already. So unless he's got some agreement, it's a moot point. All Governor Walz can do is call them back. He can't do anything beyond that. So
right,
the
but
legislature
these Democrats
can
fall in line. It's not like they even really have to reach a deal. It's more just he can give them the commands, and Melissa Hortman and Bobby Joe Champion make it happen.
Well, that's true, but I don't know. You're kind of making the assumption that in this case the Republicans would have the legislature,
Sure,
and they'd call back. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think there'd be any good that comes out of it. That's when they're going to try to pass all their bipartisan deals. Like, what? No. How about we stop spending money? Because that's what they would do actually in this case. They didn't do a bonding bill.
The retirement homes. That's what they love to do.
Yeah, that and the debt bill. They didn't pass the debt bill. That's what they would do. They would come back together and they would put another $1 billion on their credit card. Billion, not trillion, right? So Fatah stands with her, huh?
Yep.
there's a couple
Well,
senators?
not just Fateh, but
Fateh, sorry.
I don't know how
Fatah,
to say
Fateh.
it either. But yeah, Dawson, go ahead and pull up that picture. I had emailed it to you because there's several of these legislators who are standing with Nicole Mitchell, regardless of this. I'm going to pull it up on my laptop.
John Marty,
too, so.
Jen McEwen, Tao Zhang,
Yeah.
and Omar Fateh.
Yep. So it's pretty interesting that the four of them are standing by Nicole Mitchell. Essentially, what they're saying in this statement is that they believe that she should have her due process, that she shouldn't, that they disagree with the calls to resign. It says calls for Senator Mitchell to resign at this juncture are premature, and many appear to be driven by political considerations. So this shows that the Democrats are not united on this strategy at all. And Nicole Mitchell, I mean, she obviously is hanging in there because she still has some pride. She wants to hang in there. She doesn't want to give this thing up. Maybe she can be convinced to after the trial or something like that. In between that, and between the 10th and the 12th, maybe there's some time where she would agree to resign in that period of time. Maybe she needs to be offered $120,000 in order to make it happen. But I would figure that, I don't know.
We
I
need a
would
satire site.
Right.
We need a satire site. Mysterious woman delivers a bag of $120,000 of cash to Nicole Mitchell.
Yup. And yeah, it's just
Oh,
it's
my God, the
hilarious
story's
what they
mixed
say
up.
in this thing. They say Senator Nicole Mitchell has done excellent work for the people of Minnesota. Her service to our country in the military and now in the Senate has been filled with compassion, caring, and thoughtful work. We are proud of her leadership on veterans issues, foster care, child protection, environmental protection, human rights, and other issues. While the legal process plays out, we fully support and expect that Senator Nicole Mitchell will continue to serve the people of Minnesota and her district. So, she's got some friends in the legislature too. So it's interesting that they're not all abandoning her, because you'd figure that the smartest move for the Democrats is jump ship. And, that's why Tim Walz is doing it. That's why Ken Martin's doing it, for the political purposes. But these other senators are hanging on. So, I mean, I'd figure that this is like the progressive wing of the Senate in some ways. John Marty, he's probably the most irritating person to ever listen to on the Senate floor. Jen McEwen, Tao Zhang, and Omar Fateh. I mean, I'm surprised we're not seeing May Quaid also on this, but it's interesting to see some of the dividing lines within the Democratic Party, because for the most part they go in lockstep, but it's good to see when they disagree on issues.
I think there's a angle that you didn't consider here. Did you watch her show on Thursday?
No.
That Tushi was on. Tushi kind of revealed something. Could have been a rumor, could have been totally true, but he alleges that that Mitchell also bats for the other team. So I think once again, this is Walz being anti-woman, anti-LGBT, possibly.
It makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, it could be the motivation.
Makes
here.
a whole lot of sense.
There's just some consistency. Maybe Ken Martin is as well.
Yeah.
That's why I was defending her. And all in Pride Month. My God. Get your act together, Democrats. Chris Corey, talk about that.
Yeah. So, Dawson, go ahead and pull up that article. It is on line 16. And it's a big story because Chris Corey, who I've talked about him on the show, and what exactly went on at the CD6 convention, because Chris Corey and I were kicked out of the meeting because we had the audacity of challenging the establishment. We had the audacity to say, no, we don't think that Tom Emmer should, this should just be a coronation. We don't think he should be unopposed. And Chris Corey went through all the steps, all the proper channels, and went through the correct process to be able to be recognized as a candidate. But the night before, they decided to tell him, you're unqualified. You're not allowed to speak. And so Chris Corey said, well, to hell with that. I'm showing up anyway. We tried to change the rules. It was unsuccessful. But he said to the nominations committee at the time, I will abide by the endorsement if the endorsement process is fair. Well, it was anything but fair. So what did Chris Corey decide to do? He decided to run against Tom Emmer in the primary. Because when the establishment runs these corrupt conventions where they don't even allow people to speak, and that's the thing, we kind of had the impression, well, I think Tom Emmer's probably going to be able to win this convention. But regardless of that, why not just let Chris speak? He went through the proper channels. They made up rules after the fact where they were trying to say that Chris needed to do this and this and this. Well, if you wanted that, you should put that in your CD6 Constitution. If you want that, you should put that in your convention rules. But they didn't do that, so they were changing things after the fact. I think that's why a certain rule was added to the state convention rules. I noticed that when it's like, I wonder where that came from. It's almost like you guys know that I'm onto your BS. So go ahead and scroll down there a little bit, Dawson, because you can see a little bit lower. He is now listed on the Secretary of State's website as a candidate running against Tom Emmer. He will be running in the Republican primary. against Tom Emmer. He appears as if he is going to be the only challenger to Tom Emmer in this primary, which is a shame. I mean, you'd think that any conservative in that district should be fed up with this thing, and that you'd figure that there's all kinds of people ready to step up to the plate. But it's such a daunting task to try to say that you want to run against the third most powerful congressman in the country, the majority whip. And, you know, the majority whip is a perfect role for Tom Emmer, because it's a job for, you know, corrupt politicians to be able to try to force others to control other representatives and force them to vote for the uniparty crap.
Yeah, but I don't understand. Why would he run against Trump's campaign manager in Minnesota, Jesse?
Well, go ahead and scroll down a little bit there, because I discussed despite President Trump's previous attacks on Emmer, including ending his speaker campaign, Trump has endorsed Emmer for this cycle. Many patriots are speculating that this is Trump's attempt to increase fundraising and force Emmer to support the America First agenda. However, Trump might have a hard time not supporting an America First golf caddy, which is what Chris Corey does for a living. And I think, you know, I can't imagine that Trump would say, you know, he'd rather have Tom Emmer at Mar-a-Lago than a cool golf caddy who is actually in line with the America First principles.
That's actually a valid point.
So I think that, you know, Chris Corey wasn't in the race at the time when Trump decided to do that. And like I mentioned in there, it's pretty clear that I think it's a money thing, and it does take money to win. And I don't mind Trump using and abusing these rhinos and taking their money from them.
I think Trump doesn't need Emmer to raise money. I think just getting convicted in New York does plenty good for him to raise money.
Right.
Like record $200 million. Mm-hmm. By the way, I just looking up the candidate filings. Stauber's got a primary challenger. We all know Fishbach's got a primary challenger.
Yep.
So now Emmer's got a primary challenger.
And Finstead.
And so does Finstead.
Yep.
Actually, Finstead's got two.
Mm-hmm.
Gregory Gatesman and Sean Tweeten.
Mm-hmm.
So all Republican incumbents in the congressional delegation have primary challengers at this point, which I always like that. I like seeing these guys have to work for something, you know, especially Tom Emmer, that globalist rhino, voting for Ukraine over America.
Yep. No, it's interesting. There's going to be a lot of primaries that go on during this race, but I mean, that's what's better. And honestly, not a whole lot of primaries for state representative stuff. For the most part, a lot of it has been decided. There's a few important races that people can pay attention to, but for the most part, it's just these kind of federal races where we're going to see some big primaries go on. And I just think it's awesome that, you know, Chris Corey was willing to step up to the plate. It's a huge ask. It's a huge thing to step up to, and to run against Tom Emmer. You know that you've got the establishment entirely against you. He got smeared by all these different people at the convention, and because he wasn't a delegate, he couldn't even go up to the microphone and combat any of these lies that were being said about him. So it's a tough thing to do. And, you know, even after a corrupt convention like that, sometimes that wears people out, and they say, you know, this is too corrupt. There's no beating this thing. I don't want to continue.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then other people like Chris, it reinvigorates them and say, did you really just try to pull that crap on me? I'm running in the primary now. So it's exciting, and I think it's exactly what Tom Emmer deserves, a conservative primary challenger, so the Patriots in CD6 have someone to vote for.
There you go. All right. Did you watch the Dave Smith, Chris Cuomo debate on PBD?
For the most part.
It was Friday night. I had something going on Friday night, but I got to admit, like, as soon as I could find the time throughout the day on Saturday, I ended up polishing it off. Oh, my gosh, it's worth watching. It's like 3 hours long. PBD being Patrick Bet David, which I think he's doing a great job. Do you watch that, Kyle? Do you ever watch Patrick Bet David? No. It's good stuff. You'd like it. He's not, like, overtly political, but talks about the political issues. Kyle, you should grab the headset here so you can watch this clip, because otherwise you're not going to hear the audio. This is so Dave Smith, who I got to imagine he's like, if I had to give someone credit for being like the most close to making great arguments, libertarian arguments to Ron Paul, it'd be Dave Smith. Like in many regards, he might be better. So Dave Smith rocks it. Now he is debating Chris Cuomo on a bunch of topics, but it starts on COVID. And it goes on a request for an apology tour. Chris Cuomo. I was open-minded. I got to admit, I was open-minded because, you know, Chris Cuomo was like the lead anchor at CNN and brother to, was it Anthony Cuomo? What was his brother's name? Not Anthony.
Andrew.
Anthony was the dad.
Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew.
Yep.
Who won literally a daytime Emmy for his performance in COVID press conferences, then got B2'd out. So Chris Cuomo, lying sack of crap, but once again, let's give the devil his due. So I was open-minded. It didn't take long for Dave Smith to expose this guy for the con he really is. And now what's interesting is he's like grifting. He's trying to come over a new media and act like he's open-minded and just searching for the facts. But it's like this guy was exposed. So they're debating COVID tyranny, lockdowns and stuff like this. And this is probably the biggest ownage. This is on specifically when Joe Rogan, this is one of the things that really alerted me that there's no hope in the media anymore. When they lied about Joe Rogan taking horse dewormer, okay? And CNN just said it like it was a fact. Totally untrue. So watch this segment where Dave Smith just owns Chris Cuomo.
There was so much talk that they don't want you to take ivermectin. Ivermectin is the way to go. Take it. Joe Rogan got better from ivermectin. And by the way, I don't like what people did to Joe Rogan about ivermectin. I don't like
You did it.
No. No. Okay,
Yes,
good.
you did.
Find the clips.
Dude, find the clips. You shamed Joe Rogan.
Find the
you
clips.
said he's taking horse dewormer. You and Don Lemon were chuckling at each other about it.
No.
I'll go find
First
the
of all,
clip.
you just saw the clips.
I watched
I'm
it.
not chuckling. I'm listening to Don. But
No. The
here's
clip
point.
I'm talking about wasn't on there, and
Here's-
it's absolutely
look, we
there.
were
Here, do we have it? Hold on. Let's play the clip.
Injecting drugs for animals and horse.
And people telling them to. Oh, my God. What person? You know, you talk about, like, cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer, really?
They are shaming themselves.
That's
No
what
one
it
has
is.
to shame them. They're shaming themselves.
So you're taking a dewormer right now.
This
Chris,
is
you
a
can't
dewormer.
apologize for that. You weren't being clear that it was
All
this,
right.
and you know that, dude. You're being so dishonest right now,
I'm-
man.
I'm not
You
being
were talking about ivermectin, the drug. You were not talking about this version of ivermectin. Come on. Joe Rogan is bigger than every single show at CNN combined and gets paid more than every single person at CNN combined. And he was 100% right about this thing through the entire time.
No, he
Listen,
wasn't.
yes, he
Hold on.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me get this point out
Tell
here.
me what he was right about.
Okay, how about, you know what you just revealed last month on Pat's show about ivermectin?
Yeah.
Joe Rogan was saying that, and you were smearing him for saying that.
Yeah.
You literally said he's taking horse dewormer.
Yes.
He should be ashamed of himself. You
Yes.
pleaded with your audience to not take it.
Yes.
Then you come back around and you go, hey, Pat, you know what I just found out? Turns out this thing isn't for animals.
Oh, pause it right
Turns
there.
out
Pa-
humans
pause
are-
it.
But Chris,
that's not-
That is literally-
Google
But that's-
search and you would have known
Can you
that.
stop
First
it
of
there,
all-
Dustin? Stop it. That image of Joe Rogan, this is what was just so dishonest. And this is, I think, on Chris Cuomo's show. Joe talked about this. Literally, they used like some filter to make him look greener and sicker and paler. That was not even the real coloring of the video. All they have to do is take the actual video and show it. And no, they took a green, paler version to make it look like he was really so. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan recovered from COVID within like a day. And they're like trashing the stuff he took. It's like, hey, maybe we should ask why some people go to the hospital and Joe Rogan was fine after a day of COVID. No, they didn't want to ask that. They want to use a pale filter on Joe Rogan to make him seem like he's some crazy person that's still feeling the symptoms. But that's just outright ownage. But I can't show all 3 hours of the clip. They, eventually have a decent conversation like on the border and stuff like that. Maybe they do a little bit of back and forth on Israel, Gaza, but on COVID tyranny, he just wiped the floor. What's up, Dustin?
Are you done showing the clip?
Yeah, I'm done showing the clip.
Okay.
That's all you had?
Well, have your brother sit down.
Oh, well, that was very nice. Oh, do you want to be on set? He does not want to be on set.
I'll keep
Okay.
the camera off. You don't.
Hey, we'll bring Kyle on in the post show. How's that sound? The overtime. What do we call it? The post show, the overtime. I'm already forgetting what we call the OT. We call it the OT, or the post show. Oh, God, I can't remember. Where have I been? Anyhow, we'll talk about aliens in the post show, Kyle. And anyhow, the last topic, and I do want to talk a little bit more about that debate, and then what Fauci said. Okay, but Jesse, we have not had you on camera since one of the biggest news stories that happened in presidential politics since, I don't know what, probably the 60s? Who knows? It's been a long
Probably
time.
ever.
This
Right.
is a big story. Donald Trump convicted. I don't think convicted is actually the right term. I don't think you're convicted till you're sentenced. He was found guilty by a Manhattan jury of all Republicans, right? Of 34 counts of falsifying documents. By the way, I think if you ask most people what the crime was, they would not be able to say what it was.
No way.
Right? So, which I think is actually a pretty big deal if you're going to make this story. So, what are your thoughts on this conviction? Then we'll get into the Dean Phillips' part.
Yeah, no, I think it's ridiculous. Not, a lot of people have already said what I think out there. Pierce Morgan actually made a really interesting point. I saw him talking with Cenk Uygur of all people, and he said that Bill Clinton has done far worse. He was going through all these different crimes of Bill Clinton and saying, why is it a problem when Trump does it, and why do you think it should be have these charges that are like this? Because you'd figure it's a misdemeanor in just about any other state, and even then, it's still a stretch to be able to try to prosecute anything like that. I think it's, all the media is saying it's going to hurt Trump. Now they can call him a convicted felon. I think it's probably going to increase his poll numbers, just like every other thing that they've done when they continue to go after him with this crap that isn't true. People usually see through the lies. There's some people that fall for the lies. There's some people that look at it and say, well, if he's a convicted felon, I can't support a felon. But, if people actually dig into the facts of this, even the Democrats admit that this was all a scam, that this was all because Trump is just running for re-election. If Trump wasn't running, they wouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. They just want to try to destroy him, take out his character. And, even I had seen Benny Thompson, one of the January 6th committee members who is in Congress. He was kind of insinuating that it'd be okay for Trump to be killed. Mm-hmm. And so that's the state of the Democratic Party, They want to they want to stick their dementia puppet in.
Are you referring to the removing the Secret Service?
Right.
Yeah. That wasn't even a big story.
Right. I know. Benny Thompson calls for the death of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And
what he's saying is he tried. What did he try? A bill. Tried putting legislation in that would have revoked Donald Trump's Secret Service protection. Mm-hmm. So in other words, if Donald Trump went to Rikers, he just ends up in the general populace of the prison.
Right.
What do you think is going to happen?
They're going to kill him.
If in the Feeding of Future scandal, someone could be delivered $120,000 in cash, a juror, what do you think is going to happen to someone in prison?
Exactly.
To remove that problem for the establishment.
So he wasn't saying, I want to kill Donald Trump?
Yeah, I know, right? It was interesting. I mean, like, Jesse's reading through the lines on it, but it's true, right?
Right.
If you remove Secret Service protection.
Right. It's saying, I don't think you should be able to have armed security guards with you. He's saying, I don't think you should be allowed to be protected by the government, just like any other president or any former president.
Presidential candidate.
Right.
By the way, they're not even allowing RFK to have Secret Service
protection.
Right,
and actually, that's more, I just saw a video on that. It's actually Alejandro Mayorkas who is behind that, because it's the Department of, it's the DHS, Homeland Security, that is in control of who gets Secret Service. And Mayorkas, when he was questioned on it, he basically just said, well, there's a bipartisan, nonpartisan committee. Well, if it's bipartisan, it's not nonpartisan. A bipartisan means it's duopoly. And so he said, there's this bipartisan committee that has made that recommendation to me, and I followed every recommendation they've asked of me. So, he's trying to shift the blame when all of us know that, when you look at a Kennedy, all you can think of is the political assassinations. Right. And what is he trying to do? I don't know. But if RFK Jr. gets killed during this campaign, Mayorkas has blood on his hands. And same thing if they try to take out Trump's Secret Service, if they try to do that, Benny Thompson and any Democrat that supports it and Mayorkas have blood on their hands. And that would take things to a whole new level. I mean, we'd probably have a civil war if they killed Donald Trump. Okay,
I want to cover more about this and then the COVID stuff, and maybe Kyle will join us too in the after show. And then there's a real big story, something that you might be doing that'll be really interesting. We'll cover that in the after show, Jesse.
Yeah, we'll keep that on the
We'll keep that on the after show. Okay, it's on the is after show fine? I mean, that's the after show.
We'll keep it on the after show.
All right, there you go. If you want to join us in the after show on Rumble, just hit join if you're not a subscriber. That's only for our paid subscribers, $8 a month. Best deal you can get. If you do a whole year, you get a month off on it. So click that join on Rumble, and it'll go right to our locals page. But the last story I want to cover here is Dean Phillips also playing the political angle, right? I think all Democrats want this guy in Rikers. Mm-hmm. But Dean Phillips actually calls for New York's governor to pardon Trump. What's the story behind that?
Right, and he says it's for the good of the country, but he still says Trump's a criminal, Trump is evil, Trump is this and that. He still thinks that Trump should be prosecuted on the January 6th stuff, on questioning the election correctly, because it's one of those things when you change all those election laws, when you have COVID and you're sending all these mail-in ballots to people that don't want it, and people are going to the polls and they say, you've already voted, sir, and you say, no, I haven't. Well, when those kinds of election problems are going on, and when they're counting votes that all of a sudden appear underneath a table, well, of course we're going to ask questions. So I think Trump had every right to do that, but Dean Phillips is arguing that it would be for the good of the country. They're going to make a martyr out of Trump, which is true. And I think he understands that it's not politically advantageous for the Democrats to try to pursue this, because every single time the Democrats try to get Trump, it just strengthens him even more. So we're in the same position we've always been, and I think Dean Phillips is just doing this to be a politician. Maybe he still has presidential ambitions one day. I'm not sure the Democrats really care or respect him at this point because he challenged Joe Biden, but I'm not sure things would have been much different if he had
he'll go on
in
the
there.
"I told you so" tour where Trump clobbers Biden and be like, guys, I told you.
Right.
He's got so much baggage. We need somebody else.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what he's. Because
You're
politics
right. But,
is short-lived. 4 years later,
I just
people
get the
will forget.
impression. I don't think that the Democrats are actually going to try to imprison Trump. I think that it works out for the Democrats and Trump to play it up.
Yeah.
It works out for the Democrats because they look like, see, we're really going after Trump. And it works for Trump because he says, I need the money. I need you guys to help me out. I mean, they're trying to lock me up. So I think that both sides benefit out of playing this up. And I think that they're using us as an audience to just, I'm not even sure. I think it's all an act. I think it's all a show from both sides of it.
Well, definitely an act. I mean, the court's just a joke of what happened there and what they were prosecuting him for.
Right, because if it was serious, I think Trump would be handling it a little bit differently.
Oh, big time,
you know, because he's tweeting or Truth Social in the middle of his court hearing, boring. So, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, is that how he would go about this if it was for real? I don't know. Maybe he would. Maybe he would.
Maybe he's finally going senile and he's starting to figure out that things are a little bit funky.
Yeah, maybe that's it. All right, post show. We're going to be doing the rest of this on the post show, and Jesse's what he might be doing is really interesting, actually. So if you're not a subscriber yet, click join on Rumble and join us. This will be good stuff. Hopefully we get the story we've been chasing here on Thursday. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Warren Wessel Realty, and once again, and we got to have these guys back on the show, Andrew, and we haven't had Tim yet on the show, but the Chermak brothers, who do a great job with John Galt Mortgage Company. Some people are like, is that a real company? Yeah, it's a real company. It's not just the hero in the story Atlas Shrugged. You've watched that. You read that book, right?
Yes.
I figured you did. John Galt Mortgage Company, a real company. Give them a chance. If you got to finance your home, give them a chance at johngaltmortgage.com. Thanks to our Rumble Rants. Thanks to all the comments on there. Tucker, Billy, Dawn, all you wonderful people. Jay Last, thank you. We wouldn't do the show if we weren't talking to people and you guys tuning in every week. For those that are subscribed or going to subscribe, we'll see you in locals in 1 minute. Take care.